Back in April, I released a titled video called Trying to Decode the 12-volt battery in the 2022 to 2025 Lexus NX, and it was a very long video, and I did get feedback that the video was very informative and the 48 minutes was actually well worth it. And it did give a lot of insights on the 12-volt battery and how it actually charges while driving, while being idle, and all that. Now I do have an update to that video. Since observations were found during late March and early April, now it's getting cold and I have some new observations to share. Let's get to it. Hey, it's LSF here today, and today we're here to revisit the 12-volt battery and some new observations I've seen. First, before I actually go and do the observations, I actually want to, because this one's also related to 12-volt battery, I will want to talk about some questions that came from one of my subscribers. And I will be answering number 1 and number 2. Number 3, I don't think I can really do that. But okay, number 1, vehicle is locked and plugged in, but the plug does not have any power, meaning I plug it into the car, but on the other end, it's not plugged into the socket or there's no power to that socket. Number 2, the vehicle is locked, plugged in, the plug is powered, and that the vehicle has scheduled charging and charging has not started. So I think he wants to figure out if I actually don't give power, will it drain the 12-volt battery? And once I give power, will it drain the 12-volt battery faster, or what is the frequency of that? So I guess what the subscriber is trying to figure out is, can they actually put a smart plug and turn it on just before it starts charging and then it charges? So let's get to that and look at the analysis that I've seen. Alright, so according to the screenshot at 8:47, so let me go here. This is again going to the gym, coming back home, 8:47, so roughly around this time. You can see here 13.53, and this is roughly when it was powered down, and then you can see that it dropped down to 12.37 and then 12.5, and then it was consistently having some up and downs. So this is when the car was plugged in, but there was no power to the plug. So meaning you plug it in and it's not plugged into the socket. I actually have a smart plug, so I turn off the power, so there's no power to the plug. So when you look at that, you're talking about 12.36. It goes down, up and down. It doesn't, there's actually some checks probably the car is doing, and then it stabilizes at 12.5. So you can see that it continuously stabilizes, and then it drops a little bit. You can continuously see it dropping. But after that, I turned on the power at 1:41. So you can see here 13. So this is time. It's possible because I have my keys with me and I'm walking over, and you can see that it started to come up and down. But then at 1:41, that's when I actually turned on the power. It's not charging yet. So you can see that it went up and down a bit, but then it stabilized. So here 12.4, 12.4, doesn't have changed much. So at 2:36, roughly that time frame is when the car started to charge. So you can see here that 12:46, you can see the voltage went up to 12.6. But then after a certain point of time, around 3:53, the voltage went up to 13.44, and that is probably because it's starting to heat up and warm up the battery. And you can see at 5:21 is when the car finished charging, and you can see that around this time the voltage started to drop down back down to 12.6. And then you can see this part around 6ish is when I actually started driving the vehicle. And then you can see that it went up to 14.2 charging, and then it stabilizes until the evening where I got home, and it went back to 12.4. So you can definitely see that the patterns are a little bit different in cold temperature, because if you look at here temperature wise, the battery around that time, so it's about 13 degrees and it went down to 876 degrees. and then 90 degrees, and then it went back down and it slowly cooled down. Looking at the state of charge, so around when it started plugged in with no power, it still drops, slowly drops, until when it started to charge around 2-ish, and then it gradually started to go up. And then again, I'm not sure how reliable I can trust this state of charge, but this is just an algorithm that they have. And 92%, and then when I started driving the car again at 14 volts, it went back to 97 and slowly drops down to 65. Very inconsistently. I don't know how the voltage can drop so much, because it's, even though it did charge, you can see it charged at 14 for roughly, let's say, 20 minutes, and then it comes back down, and then it gradually gets back to 12.4. So really 12.4, 12.4. Beforehand 12.72, 6, and then it goes. And really, if you look at it, it didn't really charge much, even though all the activity has been done, and it's still maintained at 12.4. So if you look at the next day, it gradually goes and down to 12.3, and then coming up, I drive, and then you can see that it maintains, it goes back down to 12.3. Going next day, you can see that there are situations where it charges, and you can see that it maintains at 12.3 and then 12.6. So overall, you would notice that the battery looks like it likes to maintain itself around 12.3 to 12.6 voltage. So December 29th has been an extremely busy day. You can see here that based on the home charging, the car started charging around, let's say here, about 12:30 a.m. And you can see that from the top left chart, it goes to about 6 o'clock. So you can see here roughly around 6:45 is when the car finished charging. And then you can see here, the peak is when I actually went and drove out. Then it settled down and the voltage maintained at 12.41. After that, I got home, and then it went up to about, this is the time where it went up, and then I idled a bit, and then it settled around 12.3, 12.4 range. After that, around 10ish, that's when I went out again, and I drove until about 10:45 time frame, and you can see here it actually got, it peaks a little bit, but it drives with the nominal 12.8. One thing to keep a note, the current temperature at that time is around between 2 degrees and 8 degrees outside. And then when you look at it, about 10:52 is when I use public charging. So you can see that around here is when you see that little peak, 12:57, 12.89, and then I charged until 11:52. So about 1 hour time. And you can see that it did not charge the 12 volt battery at all using a level 2 public charger. Then I unplugged it and I went to pick up something, idled for a bit. So after that, I went to different places, had lunch, and then got home. And then when I got home about 2ish is when I plugged it in again. It was charging, and then I finished charging around this time frame, 18 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and you can see that dip. And then after that dip, you can see that it continued to stabilize until 8 o'clock, and then you can see that it's at 12.4 again. So overall, it's interesting to see that it started the day at 12.46 before charging, and the day about 12.4 as well. So it's quite obvious when you look at how this charging mechanism is working. During temperatures around like 10 degrees time frame, you occasionally would get times where it will charge a bit, and then I think when the 12 volt battery warms up or certain scenarios happen, it will stop charging. And in the scenarios where it is warm enough, it will not handle it, but there's a threshold temperature which I have not been able to figure out yet. It could be 7, I don't know, but I've seen scenarios where around that time frame, the car is charging the 12 volt battery when you're driving, consistently and when you're charging the vehicle consistently. One thing that I have read, and that's related to the heating of the traction battery. If it does need to heat up the traction battery, the 12-volt battery will be charged at that time as well. So I think that's where the time frame, we know that anything above 10 degrees, most likely it will not charge while you're driving, or it will have that nominal charge rate at 12.8 volts. So driving 2-3 hours, you're only gaining a very little amount. But once you get to below 10 degrees, from like I would say from let's say 6 to 10 degrees, it's on and off. You will get charging, and it will charge while you're driving. It will charge and then panel off and to back to like at the nominal charge. But when it's below, I would say I've seen it consistently around 5 degrees. It will consistently charge at 14 to or 13 volts while you're driving, and it easily gets to 100% state of charge. So the programming for cold weather seems to be doing quite well. But then in cold weather, we definitely know that our EV range has dropped as well. And that could be one reason as well too, because while they're driving, it consistently is charging the 12-volt battery to ensure that the 12-volt battery is running at a higher voltage. So again, there's still no answers. Only the engineers at Toyota and Lexus can tell you exactly the rules and the algorithm they're using to charge the battery. So being able to know that it does charge up while you're driving in cold weather is a good sign. But then for me personally, when my first battery died, it was the day after a minus 22 degrees. Because one thing I've noticed, it seems like no matter how much you charge the battery, it will somehow use it up and go back down to 12.4 or whatever voltage your battery can sustain. Again, no expert on battery technology, but definitely something to look into. But again, with a battery monitor, it is at least giving you information that the car is not giving you. So the battery temperature on that day, December 29th, is actually quite warm. So you can see here started at 8 degrees, 14, and then you go up to 20 degrees almost, drops down a bit, 17, and then 12. So you can also see that this temperature, from what we've observed, it will not charge at 13 or 14 volts while driving or while charging. I'm on my way to a vehicle, and you can see right now it already caught the Bluetooth. It's 78%, 12.53 volts. The battery itself is about 6 degrees. So I'm gonna go and unlock, because I haven't remote started today, and gonna see how the pattern goes. So you see the voltage is at 12.12 right now. Haven't started the car. Voltage is much lower than we expect. Alright, so let's go and start. You can see right now the temperature, like the voltage is 14.4, so it's on idle. So definitely we know that it is charging, and it's charging at the quick pace. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to drive it and see how does the voltage change while driving. So looking at this, it is actually minus 3 degrees roughly, and the 12-volt battery is about 7 degrees inside the back of the trunk. Now you can see that we're driving and you can consistently see 14 point something volts charging that 12-volt battery. So definitely when you see here, it does look like it is doing what it's supposed to do, charge up the battery when it's cold outside. And it seems to be doing its job. And this is where I'm trying to figure out at what temperatures does it do this. So right now we see 7 degrees. We'll go to the next video and then we can see that video is a little bit different in behavior. Even though we don't believe much in that state of charge number, it started at 77, and after driving this about almost 17 minutes, it's gone to 82, I think. So roughly 4 or 5% that's been gone up. Follow me on Instagram at LSFTvideos. You can see updates on my experience with the NX450H Plus, which may not be shown on any future videos. You can reach out to me via direct messaging if you have any questions on your Lexus. If you like this video, you can provide me feedback in the comments below, like this video, share it with your friends. This definitely will help with the YouTube algorithms. Press the subscribe button and bell icon and get notified when new videos show up. And lastly, if you want to support me further, you can provide me a super thanks, or visit my Amazon storefront before you purchase anything from Amazon, or you can purchase products from the list on the items that I've been using with my vehicle or at home at no extra cost to you. And now let's continue with the video. So we've seen cases where it goes above 10 degrees and it doesn't charge at all. We've seen cases where it's below 8 degrees, like 6, 7, 8 degrees, and definitely know that if it's minus, it will charge all the way. So here in this video, you can see that I'm driving, it's 9 to 10 degrees. It started off charging at 14.28, and it does look like it will continue to charge. But at a point, it actually stops charging. You would notice that it would go down, it will reduce the charge, and then goes back down to 12 point something. So you can start seeing here, it's now 13.7. From a rapid charge, now it's gone down to a slower charge, but then it went back up. Interesting, right? So you can see that there are peaks and valleys at this point, and you see 82%, 9 degrees on the battery, not outside. Outside temperature is much colder. One thing that I did on this one is I did do a remote start up front. So it was remote starting and it was charging up already before I went into the cabin. But then that's why it's actually warmer inside, because it was warming up the vehicle as well. So you can see here it's still at 14.31, still going quite well. I'm going to fly a little bit faster, and then we'll get to a point where you'll see it dropping down to 12.8, just having the nominal charge. We actually didn't have to wait too long, it was just right there. So 12.76 now, you can see that after it's charged for roughly a minute and a bit, it now gone back down to the nominal 12.78 or 76, like that, around that time where it gives the car a nominal charge. You can see it says battery okay, it doesn't say charging at all. So it just has enough to run the vehicle and enough to charge it slowly. Because again, the battery is not at 12.8 at steady state, meaning when it's like stabilized, it's sitting there not doing anything. So 12.45 is probably where we're seeing, but here it actually does that little of a charge. While charging, so you can see here on January 3rd, I actually remote started the vehicle around 6:30 in the morning, and then it actually was charging, and then I actually was going to the gym. And then at that point, I powered off and it stabilized around 12.34 volts. Going down, then you can see that around 8:30 when I remote started again, it went up to 13.4. And then when I started the car, it was 14.29. and then I got home. And then when I got home, I actually started to charge the vehicle. And you can see that it is 13.44344 and all that. And then around, I would say 11 o'clock, that's probably when the battery was fully charged. And it went back to 12.8. And it was consistently at 12.8, 12.7. So you can see here around 2 p.m. is when I unplugged the charger. It went down to 12.3 and then it went back up and stabilized at 12.64. And you can see slowly the voltage drops. Doesn't drop a lot. So you can see from like even at this time at 4 o'clock to midnight, you're still talking about a 0.1 drop. Alright. One thing to look at, temperature of the battery. Around 2 is that it was about 13 degrees and it slowly cooled down to about 4 degrees. Okay, going back to the voltage, let's come back here, and now here you can see in the morning 12.52 until here it got to 12.46 around 8 o'clock. And this is when I actually went and plugged the car in again because I did not fully charge the battery the day before. And you now see it's 13.4 and it is consistently going and charging the battery while it's charging the vehicle. Again, come back, the temperature, it went down to almost like 2 degrees and now it's about 8 degrees. State of charge, something that you cannot really 100% rely on, but then when you look at when it actually started to not charge, it was right at 100%. 2 o'clock, when I unplugged, it went down 98, 91, and it's slowly gone down all the way. And then when we look at here, it slowly goes down until about 72% when I start plugging it in again. And then the 13 volts slowly charges it up, and now it's at 100%. But it's still, right now, when you look at the voltage, it's still charging at 13.43, which is a normal charge. If you do see 14, it means it's doing a rapid charge. If you see it at 12.8, that is when it's doing a nominal charge, and that is meaning it's trying to maintain the voltage so that whatever's being used is used, but it still maintains the voltage and it charges it a little bit. Okay, so that's what we're seeing in wintertime. When you're charging the vehicle, it actually will heat the battery, warm up the battery, and that's when the 12-volt battery is being charged. So I did read somewhere before where the RAV4, when when it's trying to heat up the battery, that is when the car will charge that 12-volt battery. So in extreme weather, in cold weather, the car is programmed to charge that 12-volt battery when you're charging the vehicle, so that it warms up the traction battery and it also charges the 12-volt battery as well, so that you won't get stranded as much during cold season. Alright, so right now you can see it was charging at 13.44 and then it actually peaked around 10 o'clock at 14 volts, and then it started to drop down to 12.87. And right now the car is actually still charging at this point of recording. So there's like 2 more hours for it to charge, and you can see that it's down back to 12.81. So what does that mean? That does mean that it has fully charged the battery. And right now it's just maintaining it. You can also see that temperature wise it's now at 9 degrees. But then you can also see that it took this time from 8 o'clock for 12.4-ish volts, from 8 o'clock to charge at 13.4 roughly. It took about from 8 till around 10, so 2 hours for it to fully charge that 12-volt battery, and now it's in 12.8, which is now at the nominal charge, so that the battery does not drop. It actually still is needed to maintain the charging cycles. So when the car is finished charging, then we will be able to see what the voltage is after it has like normalized, because it has to settle before it actually gets the correct reading. It will fluctuate a little bit more until it actually settles. Okay, so let's see what happens after that. Alright, so the vehicle has finished charging at 12:37. So you can see here, let's see, at 12:35 it's still at 12.68. So you can see that while it's charging 12.75, it started to drop around 12.2, like 12.21 to 12.68. And now you can slowly see it going down to like 12:37, 12.45. So definitely you can see now it's dropping back down to the 12.4 range. So now it's just waiting it for to stabilize a bit and really see what the battery is. But definitely you can see that there was charging that was happening. It was a fast charge a little bit, and then it stopped charging it, and then it started using it. It really did a nominal charge maintaining the voltage, and then now it's at 12.44. Definitely we can see that temperature wise the battery has heated up more. It was 2 degrees when it all started, and now it's about 10 degrees in Celsius, so it's warmed up a bit in the car. And now you can see 99. Now it's slowly dropping down to 94, even though when you see it started charging the state of charge. So from a voltage standpoint, I would definitely see it will drop a little bit further, but overall you can see in this temperature, 2 degrees, 10 degrees when it's warmed up, that definitely has gone to a certain point. So when you look at here at 10:13, so when you look at 10:13, you can see that it's 100%, but at 10:13 we can see that temperature has gone from like 8 to 9 degrees temperature. So I don't know if this is the key, is the temperature of the battery, and is that really the threshold to say stop charging. So now that the battery has stabilized 12.75, and you can see that it actually did the drop to 12.4ish, and then after that it actually went back up to 12.6. So 12.44, and then now it has gone back up to 12.6, and it has stabilized around that. So 12.52 before charging is 12.4 something, and then when it actually finished charging now is at 12.6. So it did charge up the battery a bit. So about 5 hours later, you can see it dropped back down to 12.46. And then driving out, you can see that it gone back up to 14 point something, charging the battery. But then when you look at 10:30, it actually went back up to 12.6. So just looking at a typical day, January 4th, you can see that it started off at 12.52 and it ended the day at 12.62. So it did maintain all the activities that I've done, charging, driving, and all that, and it did charge the battery. So how does your car know about the state of the battery, the temperature, and all that? So there is a battery sensor, and it's connected to the negative terminal of the 12-volt battery. You can see it here on the screenshot. That's actually the battery sensor that was installed on my first 12-volt battery. You can see here what it does. It can actually monitor voltage, state of charge, the state of the health of the battery, and some sensors do temperature reading. I don't know if this sensor does temperature readings, but from what I'm observing, I think it does. So this sensor is not the cheapest sensor you can get. It's $210, so not awfully expensive, but also not awfully cheap as well. So why am I talking about this sensor? Well, a lot of the data and a lot of the programming that's used requires a good sensor to ensure that it gives the right information about the state of the battery so that the car will know it needs to charge or what it needs to do. So when you go in and install a battery monitor or boosting the car, just make sure you're careful that you don't go and short circuit the sensor, because if the sensor is not working, you will actually not get charged at all. So one thing that you'll notice, in April, the peaks and valleys of the voltage chart, it just goes up and comes back down. When you actually go in reverse or you idle, it will peak and start charging. And when you're driving, it gives you the nominal charge about 12.8, 12.9, depending on the conditions, and really based on that battery sensor telling the car the state of the battery. Then when it gets cold, like I don't know what it is, below 8 degrees, that's my guess at this point, it will charge even when you're driving. It goes up to 14 or even 13 volts. And when you're charging your vehicle, so this is only for the plug-in hybrids, when you charge your battery, it actually would also charge the 12-volt battery because it has to turn on the heater to heat up the battery, warm it up so that it can charge the traction battery at its best temperature. And then when you look at it in the winter, the likelihood of having to boost or likelihood of having issues should be a lot less. And there has been owners saying that they've been driving their vehicle and nothing happens. Everything is good for them. And I congratulate them because maybe they do have a good charging cycle. It's hard to know without putting a battery monitor or without understanding what is different between those owners and owners who are having trouble. There has been conditions where the mobile app is causing drainage of the 12-volt battery because these cars nowadays are connected. They're connected with the internet and then connected with your phone. What I've personally done is I only turn on the app when I need to use it. I would close the app or force close it, depending on which ecosystem you're in, and that would ensure that there's no communication between the app and the car, so that if there's a bug in the app, it won't continuously go and pull information from the car, causing the 12-volt battery to not really sleep, but continuously feed information. There has a number of reports that owners who've gone back to the dealership having 12-volt battery issues, and their service advisors are telling them that it's the mobile app that's causing the problem, and I heard that it's been fixed. I don't know if it's been fixed, then we shouldn't have that many owners having 12-volt battery problems. And then there's been owners who've actually just driven their car for a few hundred miles and they have a 12-volt battery issue. Some of it is because they've gone into accessory mode and that they've been listening to music in accessory mode, and that's one of the biggest problems. The battery won't last that long if you're in accessory mode. So just keep it on idle mode, having it ready, make sure the ready light is on, and the car will be fine. It's been programmed so that it can maximize the efficiency of the car so that it does not need to charge. If it doesn't need to charge your 12-volt battery, it won't want to use the juice of your traction battery to charge the 12-volt battery. But I think it needs to have an aggressive mode, or it actually needs to give owners a little bit more information. One of my subscribers has suggested maybe on the mobile app it will tell us what is the voltage of the battery so that we know that, oh, we have to go and charge. Another thing is probably if you have on the infotainment screen just showing the voltage, allowing us to know what is the state. And the most optimal situation is the car will know that the battery state and the health of the battery is not good, power it on into ready mode, and then use the DC to DC converter to charge up the 12-volt battery so that nobody has to do anything and there's no need for a battery monitor, no need for a trickle charger, and that will be all great. I hope that you found that this video was informative, and until next video, drive safely. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please comment, like, share this video, and if you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel and press that bell icon to get notified when new videos are posted. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can provide me a super thanks. And until next time, cheers.